Hello, caviar dreamers.
Hi, caviar dreamers.
Oh, should I say buongiorno, caviar dreamers?
Yes, we have an amazing Italian woman coming on today.
Maria Gangemi.
Maria
Gangemi.
Gangemi. She has an amazing footwear line.
And she'll probably be totally offended at our appalling Italian accents.
I mean, listen, I'm married to an Italian, but I probably speak better Italian than he does at this point.
I am also married to an Italian, and he doesn't really speak any Italian, even though his mother is right off the boat and speaks fluently.
Right. Maria has an amazing footwear company, because what are Italians known for? Pasta and amazing leather goods.
Those are passions of ours, pasta and shoes.
Yeah, pasta and shoes.
Shoes being a huge passion of ours.
Exactly. What's better than wearing high heels and eating spaghetti naked?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, channeling feel around today.
I know.
Really feeling it.
So excited.
Gangemi really changed the game. They came out at a time when everyone was doing fast fashion with these really fabulous luxury staples at affordable prices and an online business model. My favorite shoes are from that.
I love you in those shoes. And I always ask them, like, Lexi, what shoes is it? They're my Gangemi's. Can't wait to meet her and hear all about her company. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
How are you? So excited to have you on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Selfishly, I just want to say, first of all, my favorite shoe in the entire world that I cannot live without is the Cameo pump.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
I know Lexi dies for it. I don't have that one, but I am going to. Is it coming back?
Well, we have the Asato family, so it's 90 millimeters. We've been talking a lot about bringing back the 110 millimeters.
I need 110. I need 110 because I'm a very high heel wearer.
That's great. I think that for some women, it's a little bit challenging to wear it all day long, but for others, a few fabulous hours is enough. So I think that it's definitely something that I have to look at. I'm so glad you like it. And
cherish mine. Mine goes to the shoemaker all the time because I am afraid that it will wear out, because no shoe that high is as comfortable as that shoe.
Very important to me is that they look beautiful, but they feel as good as they can, especially for some, a pointed toe and that heel height. That was one of the big challenges, and we took a lot of time to make sure that they could be as comfortable as possible. So I'm so glad to hear that. I think one thing is to look beautiful, and I love that they felt great too. So that's
Maria Gangemi, so sexy. So excited to have you on here. Amazing shoe designer, boss babe, designer of Lexi's most favorite pair of shoes ever.
That's correct.
It's like an affordable luxury because, to be honest, they're the most luxurious shoes out there, and they're affordable for a luxury shoe, which I say. But you've had such an illustrious career, and you're Italian and glamorous. So everything about you. So I just want, people, because you're very inspiring. Your story is very inspiring because you reinvented yourself in 2014 after having a very big career. And went into starting a new business, a shoe business, and broke into an industry, that some people could call saturated.
Yes.
And became successful in it. And that's what I find so impressive, right, Lex?
Yes, for sure. So tell us a little bit about your career before Gangemi.
Well, I had a career as a buyer, basically. So I went to school to be an art history and economics major. But on my trip back, I was in Milan because I would go back to Italy frequently. I immigrated to the United States when I was 5, but I had lots of friends and family still there. So I wanted to spend the summer after graduating being in Italy. I went to Milan. I stayed a little bit longer, so I needed to do something to finance my extended stay. So I worked for Jenny Manufacturing Corporation at a show. Like it was during, one of the shows in Milan. And what I was basically a gopher, getting the models ready, making coffee for people, getting coffee upstairs. And I had met so many interesting people from, at the time, Saks and Neiman's and all these interesting buyers that were, from the States. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder if I should be a merchant, a buyer. So when I went back to the United States, I decided to go to the training program at Federated. So I was accepted there. And I started working at Filene's. This is the upstairs Filene's. It was like a Bloomingdale's type of thing. So I went through the executive training program, became a buyer, an assistant buyer, and then I became creative director in footwear and accessories.
Ooh.
My fashion. I had loved it. And it brought me to Italy, which was kind of a lifelong dream. I had met so many wonderful artisans. You know, we would go back to Italy frequently with my family to visit my grandparents, to visit my relatives. And one of my favorite memories was the little shops that you would find off the cobblestone street in every little town. There'd be a few shoe stores, a few handbag stores, and you got to meet the artisans. That memory always stayed with me, how beautiful the things were that they made. And so it brought me back to that. And we did have federated some private label, which we built in Italy. So that was my first foray into developing footwear product in Italy. From there, though, I took a position as creative director at Nine West for Vince Camuto. I met him. He was so inspiring. He was like one of my mentors. What he built such an amazing company, and a small portion of what he did was still in Italy. So I was able to do that for a while. It was in the 90s.
In the
In the
90s.
90s. Yes, I was a vice president creative director at Nine West Group. It was an incredible opportunity. He was amazing, it was a large company, and it was a really great move in terms of my career. And I really loved it in terms of like being able to work with such, you know, a large brand, you know, being able to create footwear that was, you know, for many people, for the masses in general. It was like it was a opening price point, $80, $90 at the time.
Yeah, and it was great fashion for a great a price point.
Great value. So it was a great value. It brought me to places that I'd never seen, because we were developing product in Brazil. I went to Novo Hamburgo. I learned so much about the actual manufacturing part of things. You know, it was a great experience. But as they continued to move away from anything that they were doing in Italy, my heart always kind of stayed there. I knew that there was more that I wanted to be able to do there, because it was so different. You know, there it was very small in terms of, in Italy, you would go into a workshop. I remember my first experience there. You would walk in and the mother's at the sewing machine, the grandfather is on the conveyor belt, a little tacks in his mouth, lasting things, you know, and creating these beautiful shoes made out of the most exquisite materials. And we were moving away from that. But I did it for a long time. It was an amazing experience for me. I really felt that I grew and knew more about the business aspect of things. Really taught me all of that, dealing with the buying, you know, with all the key buyers in the United States. They did a big business with Macy's, with all of the department stores. It gave me great training and a great background in business. You know, it was very different than the experience I had had before. So I felt that I was continuing to grow. I did that for quite some time, and then everything had started to shift to China, which was amazing. My first 5 or 6 trips to China were so inspiring. I'd never seen anything. I'd never been to Hong Kong.
Where was, like, when you went to China, were you like, did you feel like, oh my God, were they getting their leather from Italy? Where were they getting their leather from? Because, you know, a lot of people have misconceptions about China.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that early on, they were not. This was really early. They did later. But at the beginning, it was more from, they were delivering a lot from Brazil, Pakistan, India, other places. Eventually, as they continued, because this was at the beginning, as they continued to elevate what they were doing, because it was more and more was being imported from Italy there, the materials, the leather, but that came a little bit later. At the beginning, it was more from South America and from Pakistan that they were receiving the skins that they were working with there. And so it was quite different. And a lot of the product too early on was made with polyurethane, you know, like with leathers. So that was another part of the business that really changed. But they've evolved quite a bit. You know, it was interesting, but it was at a much larger scale. It was large production, like 5,000 people could work in one of those factories. You know, it was a different process, really stimulating, great, you know, to learn from all of that. But I was still trying to figure out a way that I would get back to Italy somehow. A lot of what I did was really preparing me to understand the business aspect and to understand the whole process of development and manufacturing. And so it was great learnings. I learned so much from that whole experience, and loving learning what customers wanted too. Because when you're dealing with that type of volume, really when you're developing product, you have to be right on because you're making hundreds of thousands of pairs. So it really was a great challenge and a great school for me in a sense. So that's what led me then a little bit later, after my 30th trip to China, I felt that, okay, this was amazing. Now what? So I met with Ben Fishman, who was the co-founder, or who was going to be starting. He's founded Rue La La.
Yes.
Really intriguing to me. And that's where I met my partner, also Cheryl. So what happened is we were discussing this whole new idea, because before then, this was in 2006 and 7 when we started having this conversation. There was very little bought online. It was eBay. There was a little bit of Zappos, I think, was really starting at the time, but it was nothing like it is today. So he said, we're going to start these boutiques that open up every day, you know, and it's going to be luxury, and it's going to be this beautiful walled, you know, boutiques that open, and we want wonderful product. You're Italian. Go and find us some Italian product that we can work with.
Yes.
And I was so fascinated by this because I was thinking you could be at home and shop, you know, but beautiful, because this was an elevated, this wasn't like a flea market type of thing. These were beautiful boutiques with all the brands that, you know, that you could possibly desire, opening from a limited time, their doors so that you could shop. And it was really amazing. And it was perfect timing, 2007, 2008, because as you know, there was a crisis. So the timing couldn't have been better. There was a lot of merchandise available. So we were able to open so many doors because people needed a beautiful, elegant way to really move through products. So that was the beginning of Rue La La and that whole flash sale, limited time exposure. But not only was it intriguing from a business aspect, but all the theater that you could create. And what was fascinating to me, because people say, oh, you work at Rue La La, I can't believe it. I'm there at 11 o'clock waiting to get on. Like the theater that I'd created, they felt like they won something when they got on at 11 o'clock.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. That whole aspect of it, I found really intriguing. But the other thing that was a big takeaway and learning for me also was not only did we do well-known brands, because that was key at the beginning, but we also did and explored with contemporary new brands that didn't have other exposure. And I remember the next day, it was Haute Hippie, you know, like that. I had done a boutique and it was really new at the time. And she said, I can't believe what happened. After your boutique sold out, our website crashed. You know, like, so
They went on Hot Hippie after
Yeah.
that. I forgot about
that-
Hot Hippie.
Oh, I loved
I used to
Hot
love
Hippie.
it. I forgot. Are they still around?
I haven't seen anything around from them recently. I loved all this silk and, you know, the silk dresses with the cashmere sweaters that like.
I know. I
soft-
used to
Yeah.
buy a lot of Hot Hippie. I forgot about Hot Hippie. So then after Rue La La, you were finally like, I have to do my own shoe collection.
I had my own ideas, like how do I take all, you know, the people you meet in your journey. You know how it's always very personal when
Yes.
God, like many entrepreneurs, it's something, it's my personal journey in a sense. I had had the pleasure of meeting all these amazing artisans like Norina. I was in Montecatini one day shopping because I had been to Forte di Marmi, and we went to Montecatini to visit, and I went into this little shop and met Norina. She had the most beautiful handcrafted true driving moccasins. That's where I met her. And she invited me up to her boutique, you know, her little boutique type of workshop. I can't even call it, it's not a factory, they're workshops. She works alongside 5 women who hand stitch. She's been doing this for 36 years, and she invited me, and I felt that I had to go to see how she did this, to see how they were made. And that always stayed with me. And I'm like thinking, now that I understood the power of going to direct to consumer, like how can we showcase these amazing artisans that I've had the pleasure of meeting in my personal journey and work with them to build a collection of footwear. And the other thing that kind of was really intriguing to me at the time was when you went shopping, and I love beautiful handmade shoes, I used to come back with things from Italy and they were beautifully made. They were unique. I had the only pair. That's what I thought was so special about it. And they were not inexpensive, but they were attainable. And then, so if I went shopping in the States to buy a beautiful pair of women's shoes, became 600, 700,
Shoes
1,000.
have gotten over the top.
Insane.
I just bought, and listen, I love Tom Ford, but I just bought a pair of shoes for reunion. I mean, it's the price of someone's rent.
Yeah.
When did that become acceptable?
It didn't.
Right. And it became so unobtainable for most.
Yeah, it's not attainable for everyone, and you want to own a good pair of shoes, and it's not attainable. So it's gotten absolutely ridiculous. So was that one of your goals, to do something luxurious but attainable?
I wanted everyone to have something that was beautifully made, handcrafted with these small workshops, because one of the things that I felt was really important is that as a woman, I want to be able to buy what I need at a specific time. Like what the few things that were really important: completely handmade leather. That was really important to me. I wanted leather lining, leather soles, leather uppers, which fewer and fewer shoes that weren't $800 to $1,000 were not made that way any longer. So I wanted to make it more attainable. That was definitely one of the key things. And the way to do that would be to go direct to consumer, not the wholesale process, because then the markups become very complex. Because I wanted to work in the best workshops. So in order to do that, I could not then wholesale. So it was important and key that in this process, that when we developed our business, that we were going to go direct to consumer, that we were going to be offering our collection directly to the person buying, not through a second party. And that's what made the big difference. Having had that experience that we had at Rue, knowing that we could create a beautiful environment to showcase these artisans, what was key. And then the next step obviously was determining the type of footwear. And being a woman, I wanted to be able to have a full lifestyle brand, because we thought, a lot of people said, oh, why did you have so many different categories? Because we make the beautiful pumps like the Cameo that you referred to. But one of the first things that we did was the driving moccasin also. I know that women today, real women, are so busy. They're running around doing errands where they need a driving shoe or a fashion sneaker so that they're comfortable and casual. Then they want that perfect pump that they can wear like you do, let's say, every day. And then the other aspect was I wanted to have the perfect flat sandals. So we knew we wanted a lifestyle, every category. So
Yes.
that was one of the challenging things that we did from the beginning. Little did I know in terms of all the work that it would be, because of the things that you were just saying, because fit was so important to us. We wanted to make sure that aspect was incorporated into everything that we did. But somehow, after many sleepless nights, because I think that Cheryl, my partner, would tell you that's the thing that we think about the most, is making sure that it's not only beautiful, but that it fits really well.
So I just want to ask you, but that's all different artisans. Because the person who makes the perfect moccasin is not making the perfect pump.
That's absolutely correct. So we spent months. I visited hundreds of people because we wanted specialists in each category. So for example, the person who makes the beautiful pumps is in Naples, Giovanni and Pasquale. Their great grandparents started their workshop in 1926, and their daughters are going to be 5th generation, and all they've made is perfect pumps. Even though it looks like the simplest because it's very clean, it's the hardest thing to make, because everything has to be perfect, or you see it when something is so clean. And we decided to work with him because they were perfectionists. Very few people make a heel that high that doesn't have a seam. If you look at it, it's seamless. There's just stitching in the back. When you look at the toe, you can see the lines from the last. The way the curve is, that beautiful curve that goes from the heel, to the curve of the last.
Yes.
They were perfectionists. So that's what we looked for. I referred to it as we graded people, like we only wanted to work with A+. So people who worked with luxury brands and also with the best suppliers. Because if you're working with workshops, because even in Italy, there's different levels. There's people who make shoes for the highest brands and medium brands and lower. We wanted to work with A+, type of workshop. So we studied it and we determined to put the team together that we did. So the specialist in each category. You're absolutely right. You understand that perfectly because that's all they make. So Norina, who was the person in Montecatini, only
Mhm.
makes hand-sewn moccasins. That's her specialty.
Did you have to get foot models, or they had the standard, or you?
Our own, because that was such an important aspect of what we did. We wanted our standard. So Pamela, she is a size 37. We used European last. That was really important to me as well. But we had a standard and we wanted it to be medium. We needed to make sure like the type of width, a medium width, of the instep, all of that, so that there's consistency and there's one standard that we go by. So she tries on every single pair of shoes that we make, and she's the 37 standard. I'm the 40 and Elisa is the 39. So before anything goes into production, first we confirm it on her because the sample size is a 37. That's where you start. Then everything is graded and commercialized. And once it's commercialized, we have a standard for the 39 and 40. Once that is complete, then we move forward. So there's a lot of work that goes in from the design aspect to the commercialization and then finally to the production aspect. What we determined, what was really important to me too, is that people have that feeling of having something special. We do very limited batches. We do go back and make like some of what I call my essentials, like the cameo, the asato, those type of styles and the moccasins. But we also introduce new things. But what we do is we make limited batches and then we place reorders. So we're designing, sampling, and shipping every week. Every Friday we ship from our warehouse in Prato, Italy, which is in Tuscany.
I think what's so interesting is, like in 2014, when Gemi came along, the footwear industry was making a lot of fast fashion, very disposable shoes, and limiting the sizes, no half sizes, not very size inclusive, and it was really like fast throwaway fashion. And doing something so, obviously it's not simple technically, but coming along with such a clean, simple aesthetic was so refreshing. Was that deliberate or was that just?
No, all of the things I thought about, all of that. It's so interesting that you picked up on that. I had noticed that I was surrounded by people who really, whether it was food, farm to table, whether it was a pharmacy, people were starting to really care about where things were made and how they were made. And I noticed that in everything, everyday things, and that there was a move and an intentional focus on sustainability. That people wanted to eat better. They wanted to know where their foods were coming from, where the products were coming from. And I thought that it was the right timing because people wanted to know that everything that they were buying was made ethically, and sustainability was really important. And that's one of the things, the premises that I thought it was the right timing for all of that, because I could see people thinking in that way, that what we were doing and what we wanted to do is the limited batches, not making excess, inventory, really focusing on perfecting everyday essentials and made in with small artisans that they could get to know through us. That would be really important to them, because I think that this whole plastic, throw it away, it's $50, who cares? I think young people, everyone is moving away from that. I think that people would much rather make an investment in something beautifully made that they'll be wearing for years and learning to take care of it. Because I'm so glad that you go to the cobbler, because that's really important. Like a lot of people who, was really interesting finding too. We were for some people, the first time that they had bought shoes with all leather, because they didn't have access to it before, the leather sole and all of that, because in the past they probably worn things that had plastic bottoms, in a sense, the synthetic, so they would last forever. So when they bought their first pair of leather shoes with leather soles, they had to learn to take care of it and make sure that it was protected and that it would last, replacing the heel tab when they needed, replacing the little tab on the front and taking care of their beautifully made product. But it was very intentional. I thought it was the right time. I thought people wanted to invest in quality and have timeless, beautiful product. We did want to modernize it. I don't want to say that we don't make things that are on trend. Like, for example, like we'll make the Feliz, which is our moccasin, but I always pay attention to what is happening. Like I wanted to make sure, like this season, my favorite color is the green, like that jewel green, because you know a lot of us are just wearing black or white, and it's great to have fresh new color like the a lavender or a jewel green. So we're always paying attention to trend in that way.
What are some of your pet peeves? I mean, obviously, when you see people, you look at their shoes.
When they don't take care of them, everything.
I'm the same way. I have a Ruri.
They have a beautiful shoe on, and then the heel tab is worn down, and they're
Horrible.
they're crooked, or when they don't take the time to do that, or when they don't take the time to just clean it, it just drives me crazy. The white bottom sneakers, when they don't take a Mr. Eraser and clean it, it's really taking pride. Like they've made an incredible investment, and it's just that's one of my pet peeves. I want people to understand if they take care of them, they can look beautiful forever.
And how important is a good shoemaker, like a good cobbler? I mean,
Best friend, I have him on speed dial, Peter, from Mob and Shoe.
who's the shoemaker in the city?
This was in Newton, where I used to live. The cobbler should be your best friend. If you're going to invest in beautiful shoes, I think that you have to take care of them. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Having people like not walk around like that. And in New York, I see it all the time. Any major city, Milan, I see that often, and it just drives me crazy.
It's really funny. When I used to live in the city, the cobbler was on my street, and he was my best friend. And I would go in on a Monday with my shoes from a Saturday, and he'd say, "You were in the meat packing last night," because there'd be chips in my heels. And now I live in New Jersey, and the best thing about moving to New Jersey was his brother opened a shoe repair across the street. So I kept it in the family, and they've been cobblers for, a million generations, and it is so important. And I've had like the same pair of boots, like the heel rewrapped 1,000 times. It's funny, it's like an old-fashioned thing. Like my dad always had a shoe polish and a shoe brush, and I just don't see them sold in CVS. We need to bring back taking care of your shoes.
I agree, because I can't stand when people have I have a rage with bad shoes. Listen, my husband, when I met him, and he's Italian, I'm shocked. He like 2 good pairs of shoes, but he was like work boots and this and that. I buy him beautiful, expensive shoes, but then he wears his beautiful, expensive shoes like through the mud. I'm like, Joe, what are you doing? You have beautiful suede driving shoes. And he beats the crap out. I go berserk. Berserk. I almost start crying. I take very good care of my shoes. I judge people by their shoes.
I do too. It's a terrible thing, but I do.
You cannot have bad, cheap shoes. It makes me absolutely nuts. You have to have good quality shoes.
Yes.
It drives me absolutely
quality,
crazy.
Not quantity.
Yes. And I say that, what about like when you have pointy toes and the little toe is like crooked and like.
Terrible. When it's peeling back, a lot of people don't know that all of that can be repaired. That's the other thing too, that a good cobbler can take care of all that. When you have a little bit of peeling on the heel or the toe, all of that can be addressed with a good cobbler. And they'll continue to look beautiful. So I have no idea, why people continue to do that. So
what was the shoe trend that you were just repulsed by?
Crocs.
Me too.
By the way, the pediatrician will tell you the majority of accidents in children, broken bones, come from kids wearing Crocs. So not only are they disgusting, they are dangerous.
And then they came out with high heel Crocs. Who in their right mind?
I know that, it's a huge business, but I've never been able to accept it. I just think it's so unflattering. I don't think it looks cute. I don't think it looks attractive, but that's one of the trends that I've never really understood.
I had a very upsetting trip through Nordstrom shoe department recently, because not to mention all the clunky sneakers, which I am not a fan of, I think it's Balenciaga now did a high-heeled stiletto Croc.
They did a collaboration with them.
Yeah.
Well, that's disgraceful.
Turned my stomach.
Disgraceful. So tell me, so you're doing the different fashion colors. I love that you keep it classic. You've maintained your price points. You sell direct. Tell me what is next? Would you ever go into any other products? Do you want to go into other leather goods? Tell me what's next for you?
We've started a little bit of handbags, because during COVID, I had the pleasure of being introduced to Angelo, who has a workshop in Abruzzi, because
I love it. Everybody, all these little towns and
Yes, and he made such beautiful things. And during COVID, what had happened is he got a lot of cancellations, and a friend of ours introduced us via Zoom. Can you imagine this? Saying that, oh, can you do anything with him? He really his parents started the business, and now he's there working alongside his daughter. Is there anything that you can do? So you know how I said, of course I'll talk to him. I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do at this time, because it's counterintuitive. Here we are in lockdown and COVID, and, and I'm being introduced to someone to start in a new category. But I was so engaged. You know how you meet someone and you know how talented they are and how much it means to them. And he's like, I have to continue on. There's no way during my reign here, like running this family business, that I'm not going to move forward, because they had gotten cancellations, during that time. It was really heartbreaking. So he said, let's do a few things together. So we decided, I was at home and I'm like, what do I need? Like, how does this work, in this strange timing? But he impressed me so much, and the quality of the samples, he sent me things, in FedEx. He made some beautiful things. So we started doing some handbags with a purpose. Like we did a tote that was like my carry-all bag. And what I mean by that is I was at home and moving around because everything became like at home. All of us were working from home, but sometimes I would be at my desk and then I'd want to go move to the balcony or something because, you're sitting on Zoom calls all day. So we built a carry-all tote where I could put my computer, my water, my notebook, the sample that I was working on, and kind of move to the next destination.
yes.
We started a small collection, which did surprisingly well. We launched it soon after they reopened in Italy. And I would love to expand in leather goods because it's perfect, like with the type of materials that we're using already, the tanneries that we have great relationship with. I would love to expand in that. I just think it's a natural, next step to continue to work in that category. I'd like to bring more of all the beautiful luxuries you find in Italy. So step by step, it's just, things are finally really feeling good. Like there's this kind of reunion now, like I'm starting to go back to Italy so we can do more together. So as things continue to open up, I'd like to experiment with many more things.
I love that, especially with like handbags, because I feel like handbags again got so design
Crazy.
driven. A, they're crazy expensive, but B, so design driven too, that when you really need, like, like sometimes you just need a great crisp white shirt. When you need like just a really good simple clutch, you go through all your stuff and you're like, oh my God, everything has tassels, spangles, studs. I want to wear diamond, but it's, I have gold hardware. So just something simple, clean would be so great. Like the staples of handbags.
Because I think it's very similar to footwear. Like there's the 5 essentials, I always call them, that you want just beautifully made. You want a modern take on them, whether it's color or material and comfortability. But I think the same with handbags, like you said, the perfect tote, the perfect clutch, a little crossbody so that you can run around and have your hands free if you're, running errands. I completely agree with that philosophy, that it's great. And when they're beautiful lines and materials, that's all that you need to make the statement. All the other, it's kind of takes away. It depends, like on your mood. Obviously, sometimes it is great to have all that spangle and all of that.
Yes.
So most days, I like things that are clean, modern, but in a sense, a reinterpretation of a classic. Because those can be your go-to. And and every woman's closet should have those essentials. It just makes it so easy because we're so busy. And one of the things that I always keep saying is I'm always thinking about real women because it's so complex. We're taking care of children, we're taking care of family, we're still doing so many things each and every day. So the simpler we can make things, and I think that that is what is really important to a lot of women today, is that we simplify things, that she has her go-tos that can make it easy for her to look great and feel great as she goes out the door.
Oh, I agree.
I know. So tell me, everybody who comes on the podcast, we ask them a few key questions. What do you think in your career was your defining moment, your big girl panty moment, like this is my sink or swim?
I can remember the exact day. I came back from Italy. I was in Milan and came back on February 19th. 3 days later, Federica from my office in La Spezia called me to tell me that people were dying in Lombardia, closing down, for COVID. We didn't even really know what it was. She said, I don't know what's happening. You're so lucky you didn't go to Milan to that show because Lombardia.
That show. Your friend was there.
Yeah, and it was, we didn't know what to do. And then a few days later, all of our workshops were closing down because we make everything in Italy. So all of these workshops were closed. And at first we're like, okay, we can deal with this because we, as I had mentioned, we design and make things every week. So this was March. All of my spring shoes hadn't been delivered. Like they were, a lot of things were cut and stitched. Some were almost ready, and some, because we deliver things as we think they're needed. So everything closed down. And then we were told first it was 2 weeks. So we're like, okay, we can get through this. Then it happened 2 more weeks and then
Yes.
So trying to work with everyone, all of my partners, and keep everyone, calm. That was really important because remember, this is not a job to them. This is their whole life.
Yes, of course.
They got cancellations from people via email. That some of their clients just canceled the orders via email. Like, what are we going to do? So I felt that it was so important to stay with them and have them understand that they had my support, that somehow together we were going to figure this out. I didn't know how, but somehow we were going to figure this out together. And so, and every few weeks we'd have to change strategy, but it was really important. What I learned so much is, okay, how are we going to get through this together? Keep talking, not like, I think some people run away because they're very difficult decisions that have to be made in a crisis that no one has ever dealt with. But communicating with them and staying close to them, we decided, okay, the things that are cut and stitched, let's try to pre-sell them on the site, and then when we reopen, we can ship them, so we did things like that. We made really difficult decisions together. Like, we decided to promote things like that so that we could sell them, so that they'd have something to ship when they reopen. And then the other thing that we did, because I was determined, as hard as it was, not to cancel anything.
That was great because so many people didn't do that.
We salvaged so many things by being really, really supportive of one another. So we everything that was cut and stitched, we did as a pre-order and then sold it when they reopened. It was at a value, but we took a cut and they did, and we made it work. And then the other thing is we repurposed a lot of the materials. We pivoted completely. Like, everything was going into stay at home. Everybody wanted to be warm and cozy. Remember all those emotions, so we took the materials and we changed, we redesigned. We took everything that we could with everything that they had on hand and repurposed it. And then, and it had to evolve. I think that was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do.
Wow. That is a big girl Patty Mo. And that's that's so impressive. And that's a testament to who you are, because you helped them through a bad time and you, stick-to-itiveness, and that you pivoted. That was amazing.
And I have to say, being on the other side of it now, it was such a meaningful experience. It's something that they won't forget, and certainly something I won't forget. It's finding in the middle of crisis solutions together and being able to support one another like that. I just think the relationships are even stronger. And I'm really proud that we were able to do that, because it was a very difficult decision to make.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
We always accredit success to a couple of different components. We always say, Marge, is 50% delusion, meaning unwavering optimism. So 50% delusion to 50% determination. How would you feel your percentages stack up?
There are moments that I think it's like 99% determination, because you have to fight so hard. But I think delusion is a really big part of it too, because you have to have such leaps of faith that you can completely differently. I think you need both. I would say 50-50, because I will never forget trying to have them understand the concept. We're going to make samples every day. We're going to ship shoes every week, to reinvent something. This is an industry that hadn't changed forever. There was 4 collections a year, people manufactured that way. No one had ever bought small little, runs and made samples every day. So at moments I said, am I crazy?
I'm with you. It's true.
There has to be the little bit of part of delusion, like there has to be like such faith that, because when you're thinking that outside the box, there had to be a lot of delusion as well as, the work. So
It's
It
true.
paid off.
It paid off. It paid off. We don't talk about our age, women of a certain age, which I know we don't. But you were at the second part of your career the second part of your life, I would like to say, in 2014, meaning like you were a grown up.
I was a grown up, lots of experience.
Were you married?
I have a long-term partner. We've been together for over 30 years, and
Yes.
he was so supportive because he's been in the shoe industry and at volume price points, a different part of the shoe industry, and he's my biggest supporter. He loves what I do.
But that's what's impressive, because I just also want to say is a lot of women, sometimes get afraid. They've done something before, they've had a successful career, they've been financially independent, and sometimes they're afraid to branch out on their own. We always say we're very entrepreneurial, as opposed to like have a business plan, do this. What real piece of advice could you give somebody?
I think the most important thing that I found for myself, because early on in my career, when Vince hired me, because he went through a lot to get me to move, because I was going through a divorce at that time. I think he thought I was playing hard to get, in a sense, but I was just having a lot of emotional things and wasn't sure that I was up to the job, because he offered me an amazing job. So I went and I moved to Stamford, Connecticut, and there were days there that I wanted to hide under the desk, that you're a little scared, like that I don't know everything that they think that I know. For me, it's like that confidence. A lot of women, especially, because I think men fake their way through that, but I think a lot of women are afraid to ask a lot of questions and learn, because they think that they're supposed to know everything. I wish that element of confidence, I think that if we can instill it, it's okay, like when you're starting or when you're doing something new, that you can ask questions. And in fact, it's really important. I think that's one of the things that is having, finding the mentors in your life to ask the questions and never being afraid. Like, I think it's a position of strength, not weakness, to being confident enough to ask the questions.
I agree.
This and that. Like, I think that, it's okay for me not to know everything, like that. But I think that comes with time. The biggest thing I can advise anyone starting in business is find the people that you respect to ask questions. Don't be afraid. And it's okay not to learn everything. And also, really essential, it's okay to pivot too. Something isn't working, don't be so stubborn. Pivot, it's all right. Even if their opinion is different from mine, I think it's important to ask questions, because I think that you can learn even from that. Like, what, they think this, it might make you look at something in a different way.
Those are all very valid.
Yes.
I think super important. And I think that's true. That's hard with women. I think you're right. Men fake it, and women get it. So that was great.
And I also think that helps women who do launch businesses at a later date to be successful, because you have built some confidence, and it is you are feeling more in your lane. Like there is like a second wind situation, and it is interesting. The same advice applies to every business.
Fashion, food,
yeah, anything.
And I think the other thing that's really important is for all of us, whatever it is, food, fashion, to find something you're passionate about. That's why I had to do this. I would have felt that it was a big hole in my life not to have done this. I've been in the workshop that I told you about in Montecatini, tiny, 10 people work there, remember. I'm standing there and I hear that buzz, the buzz of working, like this, and people are in this space, and I can see all the shoes there on the line, and I can hear the hammer as they're tacking everything to the last, and the machine and the singing, and to know that I was a part of that they can continue to perform their craft, and I can stand in that space, and I'm a little part of continuing that type of habit. It makes me feel so good, because to me, it's an art form. The way that they do things, it's like something that's been learned for generations. And
If Gangemi would like to do tours,
I know, of Italy.
Of all this, I would like to sign us up, because
I know, I love it. I love the way you speak about it. It's so romantic. Norina, I know, Montecatini, and everything else sounds magnificent.
Let us know.
I know, my husband wants to get a place in Florence, actually. That's his goal. I said, Joe, let's get a beach house. He goes, we're not getting a beach house. We're getting an apartment in Florence. I said, okay, fine. I'll take it.
That's a great compromise. I'll take that too.
Yes, exactly. Though I'm like, why not in Capri?
Well, it's very near Florence. It's a wonderful place where I spend my summer. It's called Forte di Marmi.
Yes, Forte di Marmi. I know. I'm familiar actually.
It's really, I'm going there in June. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Also, well, we need to just be in Italy. That wherever it is, there's no bad parts.
No.
Okay, that's what I have to tell
amazing.
Joe. I have to tell Joe, but he just loves to be like on the Arno. He loves to be in that area. He just loves to walk around. Joe is all about the pasta, nonstop eating. I know Florence is known, you know, they're more steaky, but he's just all about the pasta. He's a beast. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Maria,
you.
for coming on. This was magnificent. I just love hearing you speak and the passion, the way you speak, and your company is amazing and your shoes are magnificent. And I'm just so excited to see everything else that you'll be doing. And you've inspired so many just coming on here. So thank you. So could you just tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, they can find us mgemi.com on Instagram too. Yes, and
MJ.
mgemi, yeah, on
Okay.
Instagram and on Twitter.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was beyond a pleasure. Maria was just magnificent. I loved everything about her.
I love that she built a business with such passion and integrity. And even through the toughest times, through COVID, she saw that as an opportunity to support the relationships that she built. And it is so, her whole business is built around relationship and passion. And
And she
shows.
just felt like it was a hole in her life if she didn't start this company with these artisans that just loves this business. It's not about the money. It's not about anything else. It's just, she had to do this for her soul. And that's what I love, the passion about the business.
yeah, she's had an incredible career, incredibly
Working
successful.
for, you know, Filene's, Rue La La when it started.
It's funny,
Vince
I remember
Camuto.
Rue La La starting so
Me too.
because I had just started with you.
I know. I want everybody to follow Gemi on Instagram. Check out their amazing shoes. Lexi's favorite pump.
Oh, treat yourself to a pair of shoes. You
Yes,
will
and by the
not
way,
be disappointed.
It's better to have a few amazing things than a ton of shit. Just
Well, my Cameo pumps are probably in their 5th or 6th year. And homework also, seek out a local cobbler.
Yes, a good cobbler. We have an amazing cobbler here where I live, and I love him. And I just maintain your pieces, people.
That's right. Take care of yourself and your pieces and feel inspired to go after your passion today.
Yes, you can find me at The Real Margaret Josephs.
You can find me at The Life of Mrs. B, and every 2 weeks we have episodes on a Wednesday, so every other Wednesday at Caviar Dreams Tuna Fish Budget, everywhere you find your podcast. We are the same place on Instagram and YouTube.
Yes.
Keep dreaming,
Keep dreaming,
Caviar
Caviar
Dreamers.
Dreamers. And just know we'll judge you by your shoes.
Yeah. Ciao.
Ciao.